In section 5.2, we are going to learn about inverse functions. We're going to learn how to find them. We're going to learn properties of inverse functions. And we're going to start out by talking about what it means to be a one-to-one function. So on this first page, I have some definitions. And the first one is of a one-to-one function. A function is said to be one-to-one if no two ordered pairs have the same x or y value. The function should pass both a vertical and a horizontal line test. So whereas a function is a relation where no 2 points have the same x value, now to be a one-to-one function, not only can 2 points not have the same x value, but nor can they have the same y value, right? They have to pass not just the vertical line test, but also horizontal. So now why do we care? Well, if a function is one-to-one, then we say that that function will have an inverse, and we write an inverse like this. So when you see this little f to the -1 power, it means f inverse of x. It doesn't mean we're raising it to the -1 power. It means it's just notation we use for inverse. Okay? So if the function's one-to-one, then its inverse will always also be a function. Now, if two functions are indeed inverses, then their graphs will be reflections in the line y equals x. So when you graph them both, you'll be able to flip one graph over the line y equals x and see that its inverse is the reflection of that graph. And also, both f of g of x and g of f of x will be equal to x if they are inverses. So that's a good way to prove that two functions are inverses of one another. Now, to find inverse, we're going to do it three ways. The first way is numerically. So let's say I have this numerical data as part of a function. So this function, we call this discrete data because there is a finite number of ordered pairs rather than a continuous infinite function. So here, is this function one-to-one? Well, you notice none of the x values repeat, nor do the y values. So the answer here, yes, this is one-to-one because none of the x or y values repeat. Okay? If we would graph these points, which we're going to see shortly, let me just get rid of this. For example, let's say I took f of x as 4x squared. So I have an equation now. How can I tell if it's one-to-one if I have an equation? Well, 4x squared, we know what that graph looks like, or at least we should. It's a parabola, and specifically it's a parabola up whose vertex is at the origin. A little skinnier, it's dilated, it's stretched out a little bit because of that coefficient of 4, but that's what it looks like, okay? Now you notice that this graph does not pass a horizontal line test, and therefore the answer to this one is no, this is not a one-to-one function because it fails a horizontal line test. Remember, in order to be a one-to-one function, it has to pass both a horizontal and vertical line test. So while f of x equals 4x squared is a function, it is not a one-to-one function. Now the last graph, well, they just give you the actual graph. We can see here this would pass both a vertical line test, but it does not pass, again, it does not pass a horizontal line test. We can see that a horizontal line here is crossing the graph in 3 different places, meaning that all 3 of these points have the same y value. So once again, no, this graph would fail a horizontal line test. By the way, for the second example, the 4x squared, rather than applying to the graph, we could say no because there are points at, for example, if I put 1 into that function, that would give me a y value of 4. If I put -1 into that function, I also get a y value of 4. So we could also say no because the y value of 4 repeats on 2 different points. Okay? Okay, now, each function below is a one-to-one function, And it's represented in part A by a set of points, in part B by a graph, and in part C by an algebraic equation. Produce the inverse of each of these functions. So once again, I have a discrete number of points here. I did forget to close my bracket. Oh well. And is this one-to-one? Yes, it definitely is, because none of the x's repeat, nor do the y's repeat. And they already told us it was, so we didn't really have to do that. But now, find the inverse in part A. Well, to find an inverse, all you have to do is to switch the x and y values. So if this function, let's say for example, was called f, then its inverse, which we call f inverse, would be 1, 0, 2, 1, and 3, 4. And that's as tough as it gets, just switching the x and y values. So numerically, very simple to do. Now, if it looks like a graph, how do I graph the inverse? Well, graphing the inverse, same thing. Just take the x, y values of any points on the graph. Although now we see this graph is continuous, it's starting at 0, 1, but going forever. You should recognize this as, looks like a square root function. If we switch around the x and y values, 0, 1 would now be at 1, 0. 1, 2 would now be at 2, 1. 4, 3 would be at 3, 4. And so now the function looks kind of like that. Now you'll notice, if I get my line tool here, this graph and its inverse are reflections about the line y equals x. On the previous page we said inverse functions are reflected over the line y equals x, and we can see that's true. They cross y equals x at the same point, and each point is mirrored across the line y equals x. Okay, so we've got that. Now, let me move my mug here. The last one, what if I give you the actual function? Well, how do we find inverses? We switch x and y, right? When I give you points, we switched x and y in the first two examples. So now what about this one? Well, right now this says y equals the square root of x plus 1. If I want the inverse, switch x and y. So it now says x equals the square root of y plus 1. Notice I didn't move the square root, I just switched x and y. Now that's step 1. Step 2, you still have to solve it for y now. We want to get y by itself. Okay, well, if I subtract 1 from both sides, I'll get x minus 1 on one side and the square root of y on the other. Last, get rid of the square root by squaring each side. That will give me y equals the quantity x minus 1 to the second power. Now, so step 1, switch x and y. Step 2, solve for y. Step 3, write it as an inverse. So what is this function? It's the inverse of f. So we would say that f inverse of x is the quantity x minus 1 to the second power. And there we have it. So that's how you find an inverse, whether you're switching points around graphically or given an equation. One thing I want to note here, that the domain of this function is x is greater than or equal to 0. And what we're going to go on to and find in the next page here, because we're switching x and y, the domain and range are going to be switched. Okay, this function x minus 1 to the second power has a domain of all real numbers. However, because it's a parabola, it wouldn't be 1 to 1. Only the right half of the parabola is considered to be the inverse, and we'll talk about that more on these next pages. All right, so now f is a 1-to-1 function again. We want to find the inverse and tell what the domain and range are of both f and its inverse. So we learned to do that on the last page. All we have to do is switch x and y to find the inverse. So let's do that. So it says y equals x squared minus 3. What if I say x is y squared minus 3? That's the start. Now, why is x greater than or equal to 0? because otherwise this would not be 1 to 1. But if I keep it just so that x is greater than or equal to 0, now it's only the right half of the parabola, and it is 1 to 1. So solving this, I would add 3 to get y squared as x plus 3, and then take the square root of both sides. So I get y equals the square root of x plus 3. Now, you may be thinking, well, wait a minute, shouldn't I say plus or minus? Well, notice if x is greater than or equal to 0 in the original function, since x and y were switched, y has to be greater than or equal to 0 here, so it's only the positive version. So my inverse is going to be the square root of x plus 3, only the positive. So what about domain and range? Well, they're switched. I know that the domain of f was given. They told me it was x is greater than or equal to 0. Well, what's the range of f then? Hard to tell without a graph. However, I can tell the domain of f inverse really easily. Here's the f inverse. What's its domain? Well, x plus 3 has to be greater than or equal to 0 because I can't take the square root of a negative. So x is going to have to be greater than or equal to negative 3. That would be the domain of this function. Once you know the domains, we can now tell the ranges because the domain and range are simply switched. If the domain of f inverse is x is greater than or equal to negative 3, then the range of f must be the y values have to be greater than or equal to negative 3. Similarly, if the domain of f is x is greater than or equal to 0, then the range of f inverse is that y will have to be greater than or equal to 0. So we can now find ranges without looking at graphs. We can simply use the domain and range of each respective inverse function. Got two more here. So y equals 2 over 3 minus x. Let's switch x and y. So x is 2 over 3 minus y. Now, how do I solve this? Well, I got to get y by itself. Well, let's start by getting it out of the denominator by multiplying both sides of the equation by 3 minus y. So now I have 3x minus xy equals 2. Okay, now what? Well, now I get y by itself. So now I've got negative xy equals subtracting 3x from both sides. I get 2 minus 3x. Let me move up here. Let's divide by negative x now. So y would equal 2 minus 3x over negative x, or you could say it like this. You could say negative 2 minus 3x, putting the negative out in front, all over x, and that would also work. Okay, so f inverse of x is, and I'm just going to use the first version, 2 minus 3x over negative x. So what about domain and range? Well, the domain of f, this time it was not given, but it's easy to find. Look at f. Well, x can't be 3. I can't have 3 in my denominator, so it's all real numbers except for 3. Well, what about the domain of the inverse? Well, look at the inverse. X can't be 0. So that's all real numbers except x cannot be 0. Simply switching those domains and ranges, we will get, or those domains, and making them the range of each inverse. So here x can't be 3, so the range of this one is that y can't be 3. Here x can't be 0, so in f, y cannot be 0. Last example. Got 1 minute. Switch x and y. So x is 5y minus 1. Notice there's two x's here, so I got to put a y in place of each x. Multiply both sides by y plus 3. I'll get xy plus 3x equals 5x minus 1. Now I'll get y by itself. Okay. Oops, 5y minus 1, sorry. Well, I got to get the y's on the same side if I'm going to get them. So I'm going to subtract 5y over here and subtract 3x over on this side. Actually, on both sides. Now factor a y out on the left, leaving me with x minus 5. And then divide by that x minus 5. And there's your inverse. And I'm going to run out of time before I can find the domain and range. See if you can figure that out as an exercise. Good luck.